James Peterson slammed his fist on the kitchen table, scattering coffee droplets across his electricity bill, a $347 increase from last month. Impossible. As a software engineer who tracked every expense with meticulous precision, this anomaly set off alarm bells louder than his neighbor's yapping Pomeranian. "Something's not right," he muttered, running his finger down the usage chart. The spikes occurred between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., when he was fast asleep. James had bought his townhouse in Oakwood Estates for its quiet charm and proximity to hiking trails, tolerating the draconian HOA rules and steep fees as necessary evils. But this was theft. He pulled up his spreadsheet of monthly expenses, each category color-coded and organized by payment date. His electricity bill had been consistent for 3 years, between $85 and $110 depending on the season. Even during last summer's heat wave, when he'd run his air conditioning nonstop, it had barely touched $200. Now, in mild spring weather, it had nearly tripled. James brewed another cup of coffee and called the utility company. After navigating an infuriating maze of automated menus and waiting on hold for 27 minutes, he timed it. He finally reached a customer service representative. "I'm looking at your usage patterns, Mr. Peterson," the woman said in a monotone that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. "And everything appears normal on our end. The meter is functioning correctly. But these spikes, they're happening in the middle of the night," James insisted. "I'm asleep then. Nothing's running except maybe my refrigerator. Do you have any Bitcoin mining equipment? Electric vehicles? Pool heaters?" Her voice perked up slightly. "We've been seeing a lot of that lately." "None of those things," James replied. "I drive a Honda Civic, and my idea of crypto mining is checking my couch cushions for spare change." The call ended with the representative suggesting he might have phantom power drain from devices left plugged in. James hung up, unconvinced. He worked in systems architecture. He knew when something didn't add up. That evening, he installed a smart monitoring system that tracked electricity usage in real time, sending alerts to his phone. The setup took longer than expected. The HOA had strict rules about modifying anything connected to the exterior of homes, even something as innocuous as a monitoring device hidden in his own garage. He almost hoped it was a meter error, anything but what he suspected. 2 nights passed with nothing unusual. On the 3rd night, at 2:17 a.m., his phone buzzed violently against his nightstand. Disoriented and half asleep, James fumbled for his glasses and squinted at the screen. The app showed power being siphoned from his external garage outlet at an alarming rate, enough to power a small appliance or charge an electric vehicle. Fully awake now, adrenaline surging, James threw on his robe and crept downstairs. He peered through the blinds, just catching a glimpse of someone disconnecting a charging cable from his outlet before slipping away into the darkness. The figure moved with purpose, clearly familiar with the property and confident they wouldn't be caught. "Unbelievable," James whispered, taking screenshots of the power usage data. The next day, he called in sick to work. Instead of logging into his company VPN, he drove to the hardware store and purchased a motion-activated camera disguised as a bird feeder. The cashier raised an eyebrow at his additional purchases: birdseed, mounting hardware, and a small lock for his exterior outlet box. "Good evening, Diane," boomed a voice from above, amplified and calm. "Your Tesla is now being charged at the rate of $16.99 per kilowatt hour, plus a convenience fee of $125, as permitted under HOA Emergency Revenue Bylaw 15.3, a bylaw you yourself introduced last year for community resource usage in non-designated areas." Diane froze, cable in hand, as front doors opened up and down the block. Neighbors in bathrobes and pajamas emerged, phones recording. A car pulled up, and a woman with a press badge stepped out, photographer in tow. "Would you care to comment on the electric vehicle charging situation in Oakwood Estates?" the reporter called out. "We're doing a special feature on community resource management." As Diane stood paralyzed, James approached with a tablet. "I've taken the liberty of calculating your total usage from my home alone. With the special HOA approved rates, your $2,875. He smiled pleasantly. Will you be paying by check or community service? Elena stepped forward with a stack of papers. We've called an emergency HOA meeting. According to the bylaws, we have quorum present. She handed Diane an agenda. First item, vote of no confidence in current HOA leadership. Second item, restitution for electricity theft. The next day, posters appeared throughout the neighborhood advertising an outlet amnesty program. Residents who admitted to unauthorized electricity usage would face reduced penalties. Only one person qualified. 2 weeks later, James received a certified letter. Inside was a check for his electricity costs and a formal apology from the new HOA president, Mrs. Finch, whose first official act was to approve installation of a community electric vehicle charging station. As for Diane, she still lived in Oakwood Estates, but neighbors noticed she now drove a hybrid. Occasionally, James would spot her at the new charging station, paying the usage fee like everyone else. During those moments, he would simply smile and wave at the former HOA queen, taking private satisfaction in how quickly she would look away. Sometimes, justice comes with a higher voltage than expected. Sure enough, Diane stood on his lawn with 2 board members, photographing his house from various angles. When James opened his door, she didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. Your gutters are non-regulation color, she announced loudly, and your doormat exceeds size limitations by 3/4 of an inch. That evening, James received a flood of private messages from neighbors. Elena's electricity bill had doubled in January. Marcus 2 doors down had noticed suspicious activity near his external outlet. Elderly Mrs. Finch thought she was losing her mind when her motion sensor lights kept activating in the middle of the night. She rotates between houses, Marcus explained over beers on James's patio. Never hits the same place often enough to make it obvious. My cousin's on the police force, they won't touch this. Too petty for them, they say. Despite the warnings from his neighbors, James's security system caught Diane returning to his outlet the very next night, this time with a smirk directly at his camera before plugging in her Tesla. The message was clear. She was untouchable. But James hadn't spent 15 years engineering complex systems to be outplayed by a suburban tyrant with a power complex and a luxury electric vehicle. Absolutely not, Elena said when James outlined his initial plan. Rigging a power surge would be property damage, possibly assault. James sighed. He'd known she was right, but the fantasy had been satisfying. Fine. Option B then. Option B was elegant in its simplicity. First, James installed a custom-built outlet that looked identical to the original, but contained a usage meter and remote shut-off switch. He ensured it was up to code. He wasn't about to give Diane legitimate ammunition. Next, he hired a licensed electrician, Elena's brother-in-law, to document the installation and verify everything was legal and safe. The electrician also helped him install a completely HOA-compliant security light system with motion sensors covering his driveway and garage area. The third component was James's pride and joy, a small weatherproof speaker he concealed in the eaves above the garage. He programmed it to remain silent unless activated by his phone. Meanwhile, Elena had been quietly building coalition among the other victims. Mrs. Finch's grandson, a law student at State, drafted a formal complaint letter with documentation from 12 affected households. The complete file included utility records, timestamps, and calculated damages exceeding $3,000. For the final touch, James contacted the local newspaper's Consumer Watch reporter about an upcoming story on innovative electricity theft in affluent communities. He didn't name names. He didn't need to. Everything set. He told the group chat he'd named Resistance Against Electric Bandits. Now we wait. They didn't wait long. James's power monitoring app sent an alert at precisely 1:43 a.m. 3 nights later. Diane's Tesla purred silently as she parked in the shadows between streetlights. She'd been clever for months, rotating between houses, charging just enough to top off her battery without drawing attention. These tech nerds with their fancy homes never even noticed a few dollars more on their electricity bills. That sanctimonious James Peterson thought he could embarrass her. She'd bury him in violations until he sold his house at a loss. She'd make an example of him. She popped her charging port and reached for the cable she'd hidden behind a decorative rock. Just as she connected to James's outlet, floodlights blazed from every angle, bathing the area in daylight-bright illumination. "Birds are thieves," James explained with a tight smile, "always stealing my electricity." He spent the afternoon setting up his surveillance system, strategically positioning the bird feeder for an unobstructed view of his garage outlet, while remaining inconspicuous enough to avoid HOA scrutiny. The outlet lock would be his backup plan, but first, he needed evidence. That night, James could barely sleep. He kept checking his phone, waiting for the motion alert. Around 1:45 a.m., it came, along with crystal-clear footage of a woman in designer yoga pants and a North Face jacket, carefully connecting a charging cable to his outlet before checking her surroundings and hurrying away. "You've got to be kidding me," James whispered as he zoomed in on the footage. The face was unmistakable. Diane Wilcox, the imperious HOA president who had once fined him $150 for placing his recycling bin on the curb 3 hours early. The same woman who drove a gleaming new Tesla Model X that she bragged cost more than most residents' annual salaries. The pieces clicked into place. Diane's constant complaints about installation delays for her home charging station, her perfectly timed neighborhood night patrols to deter criminal activity, the smug smile when she'd mentioned at the last HOA meeting that her new Tesla was practically paying for itself in savings. James reviewed the footage again, his initial shock giving way to simmering anger. In the 5 years he'd lived at Oakwood Estates, he'd followed every absurd rule in the HOA handbook. He'd painted his mailbox the exact shade of Oakwood taupe. He'd removed a bird bath that was 2 inches taller than regulations allowed. Meanwhile, the HOA president herself was committing theft under cover of darkness. The monthly HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, where the scent of lemon-scented cleaner couldn't mask the tension. James arrived early, laptop tucked under his arm, heart racing as Diane called the meeting to order. She wore pearls and a smug expression as she droned through announcements about prohibited lawn ornaments and approved exterior paint colors. During open comments, James raised his hand. "I'd like to discuss a security and theft issue affecting multiple residents," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Diane's perfect smile remained fixed. "Is this about the reports of Amazon packages going missing? Because we've already—" "No," James interrupted, something he never did. "It's about electricity theft." He paused. "From my home, and possibly others." A murmur rippled through the room. Diane's smile tightened. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately after the meeting. Some matters are too sensitive for public forum." "Actually," James countered, connecting his laptop to the projector, "according to Bylaws 7.2 that you enacted last year, all community concerns must be addressed publicly for transparency." He clicked play. The footage was crystal clear. Diane's midnight visits, the Tesla charging cable, timestamps matching exactly to his power spikes. The room fell silent as James switched to a spreadsheet showing calculated costs. That's not what it looks like," Diane sputtered, her composure cracking. "As HOA president, I was conducting an electricity audit to ensure our community's infrastructure meets standards for modern vehicle charging needs." An older resident snorted, "At 2 a.m., without permission?" Diane's eyes narrowed dangerously at James. "Your unauthorized surveillance equipment violates HOA regulations. The board will be issuing citations accordingly." She abruptly adjourned the meeting, but not before James noticed several residents looking thoughtfully at their own utility bills. The Declaration of Covenant Violations arrived the next morning, a 5-page document printed on official HOA letterhead. James had supposedly committed 16 separate infractions, from aggressive plantings, his herb garden, to architectural inconsistency, the bird feeder camera. The fines totaled $1,750, due within 30 days. "This is war," James muttered, tossing the letter aside. His phone buzzed with a text from his neighbor Elena. Check your security camera. Diane's out front with the inspection committee.